I think we're live. Yeah. Okay. So we're starting. Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to everybody present here. So, today we'll be conducting the second episode of our mental health series, Who Can I Talk To, by Project Aarogya of Sarkari School. So, Sarkari School is a non governmental organization that yearns and is working as a think tank pertaining to many projects from education, health and hygiene, women empowerment, research and development, etc. So, Project Aarogya is also a project under this organization that works on the health and hygiene of the students of government schools in India. So, today, in our second episode, we will be hosting a very special guest, and her name is Spreeha Bezbaruah. She has completed her MA in clinical psychology from Amity University. She aspires to create safe and affordable mental health services for all and is very enthusiastic about carrying out a wide array of studies on mental health. We are very grateful and delighted to have you here with us today. So, I'm Abhilasha along with Alice, and we would be moderating today's session.
Thank you, Abhilasha. Thank you, Alice.
Yeah, sorry. Hi, Spriya. Well, well, we know that whenever we choose to pursue a subject, we are interested in a subject, we have a story behind that. So we want to know that what made you choose psychology as a subject.
So I think the story behind my journey would be that uh, from a very young age, I was always more inclined towards animals. So when I was growing up, I was always noticing different gestures, their behavior, their emotional state of my dog, especially. And then that broadened to the people around me. And then I would see. How my brother would say a certain thing and he would get yes to something, whereas I would get a no, or vice versa. So these small things is what exactly made me really passionate about the subject, and that's why I wanted to pursue it further. So yes, that's how it all started.
Okay. So, and what are your future plans in this field for now?
So I have completed my master's. Now I'm working with an organization called Socially Sold. It's a Mumbai-based organization. What I'm planning is after some time after my work experience, I'm planning to do my MPhil, and in the further future, I'm planning to start my own organization, own mental health organization. And once I establish my organization and I make therapy more accessible and more feasible for people, then I would like to start my own NGO for animals. And yes, that is my far-fetched plans.
Okay, that is like really amazing and so inspiring. I hope you're like successful in whatever you want to aspire for.
Thank
So,
you.
coming to the technical questions, so what is the meaning of mental health according to you?
So, according to me, in very layman terms, mental health would be a person who is fully functioning. By fully functioning, I mean uh, who is functioning and who has good strength psychologically, mentally, socially, who is able to deal with different situations, who is able to cope with different situations on their own, provided they'll take support, they'll take help from others, but do have the strength to deal with different situations, and is functioning without much difficulty in the society. So yes, that would be mental health in very layman terms.
Yes, exactly. And what is the difference between mental health and mental illness?
Actually, what happens is in our day-to-day life we use mental health and mental illness for the same thing when we are trying to mean the same thing, but actually they are quite different from each other. So the way we have physical health, I have health, you have health, it's very common to that everyone has mental health. It's as simple. But the difference is, your mental health can be positive or negative, it can be good or bad. But mental illness is when an individual is suffering. It's when a person is unable to function in the society, when a person has disorders or is diseased. That's what mental illness is.
Coming to our today's specific topic on child mental health disorder. So, can you tell us some of the most prevalent child mental health disorders that we see today in our society?
Okay. So there are a number of developmental disorders, child developmental disorders, and these disorders are characterized into externalizing disorders and internalizing disorders. So externalizing disorders are basically which are under control. That means not much not much guidance was given to these children in certain areas, so hence it is under control. And then there are those internalizing disorders which are also known as over control. That means excessive guidance was given. The very basic difference is that now in externalizing disorders we have disorders like ADHD, that is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. We have oppositional defiant disorder, that is ODD. We have conduct disorder. Now a lot of times conduct disorders, it further manifest into antisocial personality disorder when the child grows up. Apart from that, the internalizing disorders that we have here, there we have separation anxiety disorder, which is also known as SAD. And then we have pervasive developmental disorder, which includes autism. So these are the most prevalent disorders, most prevalent developmental disorders. But apart from that, children can also suffer from eating disorders, they can suffer from depression, they can suffer from anxiety, addiction from a very young age. So yes.
Yes. And what is the current status of child mental health in India, like, according to you?
Okay. So according to me, I think a lot can be done in this segment. I am not denying the work of a lot of people who are working in this particular sector, but a lot of work is being done for adults. But a lot has to be looked into the sector for children. Now UNICEF, they had conducted a survey where the age gap that they took was from 15 to 24 years old. And here they found, and it was done across 21 countries including India. And here they found that 41% of people of 15 to 24 in India, only 41% said that it is okay to seek help. And the rest said that no, why to seek help, we can do it ourselves. If there is an issue, we'll treat ourselves, we'll speak to our friends, and it's okay. And here I'm talking about mental illness, not just feeling sad or upset, but I'm talking about illness here. And for other countries, the rest 21 countries, about 85 to 95% people say that yes, seeking help is necessary. So you can see it's a vast and it's a major difference in our thought processes in India and the rest of the 20 countries. Apart from this, there was also a study that was published in the Indian Journal of Psychiatry, that was in 2019. And I'm talking about pre-COVID here. So about 50 million children, according to the study, 50 million children were affected because of their mental health, out of which 80 to 90% did not even seek help. So only the remaining was provided help. And this, I'm only talking about the accounted number of children. There are so many more which goes unaccountable. So if you see, there's a lot of work to be done in this sector. And I'm sure a lot of work has been done, but yes, this is one sector we really need to work upon, especially for children.
Will you mention one related to my next question, that uh, there is lack of seeking help. People don't seem to seek help. So, what are the other stereotypes related to mental health according to you?
Okay, so to give a very common example, I'm sure you must have seen, you must have had children in your own homes, and you'll see that, if a kid is running around a lot, then what do we say? That, this kid is naughty, this kid is, bacha hai, to he will run around, this is his age, this is his stage. Or if the kid is being very hyperactive, then the parent or someone would usually scold them and say that, don't you know how to behave, or however it goes. or if you see a kid who is very clingy with their mother or their father, whoever the guardian is, if they're very clingy, so the sometimes parents get very annoyed and they're like, why are you so needy? Look at your brother, look at your cousins, they're so independent from such a young age. Why are you always behind me? Go play with other kids. Why are you not mingling? So a lot of times we don't actually think that there might be some other reasons. Now, not every behavior is a disorder or an illness, but we need to understand when it's in the excessive area, when it's crossing a line. That's what we need to understand here. So this example that I gave is basically of ADHD and SAD. So in ADHD, what happens is a kid is very hyperactive, very impulsive, cannot sit in one place at a time. So a lot of times what happens is these children, the teachers usually complain about these children in PTI, saying that this he or she is always disturbing the kid next to them, is not concentrating, and the parent would go home, scold the kid, but maybe there is an underlying reason to that. So another stereotype where I'm trying to get at is that a lot of times we don't think that maybe this kid needs help because they are children, because we think that बच्चे को क्या ही हो सकता है, as long as it's not a physical illness, we don't try to look further into that. So this is one stereotype. We think the bacha hai will be fine, will grow out of it. You don't grow out of a illness, you don't grow out of it. You have to work upon it. So that's one thing. The second thing is, even if parents, they want to seek help for their children, there is this society that they're a part of. There are these norms, there are these neighborhoods which say that you are overreacting, you are a new parent, so maybe you're overacting. हमारा बच्चा भी ऐसा था, but देखो अब तो वो CA बन गया, अब वो ये बन गया, and all of that. So a lot of times, even if the parents want to act upon it, the people nearby put them in such a position that they feel, oh yeah, why am I putting my kid through this? Maybe this will impact my kid if I put my kid through this. So yeah, this is two of the very basic things that children have to face, the reasons why children a lot of time don't get help. So yeah.
Exactly. And like because of these stereotypes, a lot of children suffer in silence, right? Exactly. So, and from that stereotype, now I can relate this to the anxiety that inculcates within children. So now anxiety is something which has been so prevalent and is so common these days, right? So like what are the different types of anxiety disorders?
Okay. So the most prevalent disorder, or the most common disorder in anxiety, a type of anxiety disorder that you'll hear of, is known as generalized anxiety disorder, also known as GAD. So this is the most common type, and here children, they worry excessively. They are always apprehensive. They might feel suffocated. Some of them might feel suffocated. They might feel dizzy, and so anxiety is basically what you're thinking about the future, and you're being apprehensive of the future. It has not happened yet, but you're thinking that this will happen, you're imagining that this will happen, and then you're feeling those feelings right now. And anxiety is not in your head, you're feeling it in your body, you're feeling in different parts of your body. So if you notice, when you're feeling anxious, your hands may sweat, you might rapidly breathe, you might have a very fast heartbeat. There can be so many reasons. So anxiety is not just in your head, you're feeling it throughout your body. Your legs will tremble, they'll shake, your voice might shake. So generalized anxiety disorder includes all of these characteristics. Now, just having 2 3 symptoms of this does not mean a person is suffering from this disorder, but have tendency towards this disorder. And anxiety, everyone suffers from anxiety, but not generalized anxiety disorder. A person when has disorder, it's a disease then. Okay, so GAD is one. Second is phobia. So phobia is when a person has irrational fear. So here the person does not understand where the fear has stemmed from. So one difference between anxiety and phobia is that in phobia you don't know why you are scared, but you are scared. Like people are scared to swim, they're scared of bird feathers, or they're scared of beards. You are just scared, you don't know why. But in anxiety, there is a situation that you are consciously aware of that may have led to why you are feeling anxious in a similar situation. Okay. Now phobias can be of different types. There is specific phobia, there are agoraphobia, there are different types of phobias as well. Now apart from phobia, we have panic attacks. Now, panic disorder is when, along with generalized anxiety disorder or GAD, you have panic attacks. That is recurrent anxiety attacks when you feel that you might lose your life itself. This is the intensity to which a person feels. So, a lot of times people are taken to hospitals thinking it's a heart attack. It's a heart attack, but it's actually an anxiety attack. And anxiety attacks feel very similar to heart attacks. And a person feels very suffocated, very difficult to breathe. They have immense chest pain. So these are some of the symptoms. And then there is PTSD, which is known as post traumatic stress disorder. Here a person basically suffers from PTSD when they have gone through a natural disaster or something very traumatic in their life. So that's when you go through PTSD. In PTSD, you will have difficulty in sleeping, you will have a low appetite, you will have low energy. A lot of times you have feelings of denial, you have feelings of guilt because you feel that um, if in a family, if in a natural disaster, something happens to one of your family members but you are safe and sound, so you have, as a person, you have this guilt that I was also there. Why did this happen to him or her, and why not me? Why am I fine? I should have been in his or her place, not he or him. So there's a lot of times we have this feelings of guilt also, and there are constant flashbacks of the situation. So that is PTSD. And now, previously, OCD was also a part of the spectrum of anxiety disorders, that is obsessive compulsive disorders. But now it's a different spectrum altogether. Here, a person has very obsessive and compulsive thoughts and actions to a particular situation or to a particular object. So yeah, these are the different types of anxiety disorders.
Yeah, I didn't know this phobia. I was always confused that where do phobias stem from. But yeah, it is related to anxiety. Now I can like relate it to it. But you have mentioned about ADHD previously. But well, what I want to know is that how can a children they cope with ADHD in like cope in their mundane life activities with having ADHD?
Okay. So, like I mentioned, ADHD is an externalizing disorder. That means it is an under control disorder. And so, from that basic understanding, we can decipher this, that if the child is under control, that means first thing, they need control. This is the first thing that we need to look after. Now, for control, what we can do is we can give them psychotherapy. Now, in psychotherapy are also of a lot of different types. Now, in some type of psychotherapy, if you can talk about um, maybe some skill based therapy. Here what we can do is we can put the child to be associated or to put their attention completely into one task. Now, children with ADHD, they cannot concentrate at one go. They're always on the move, they're always driven, they're always running around here and there. You will give them something, they'll sit with the task, they'll look at it 2 3 minutes, and if suppose there is a sound elsewhere, they get distracted very easily, so they'll move towards the sound. So what we can do is maybe we can give them tasks which actually of are their interest. So that is one thing. Second thing is, it is believed that children with ADHD, it is very important to tire them. That means that throughout the day to give them activities or tasks, so that by evening they are very tired and then they fall off sleep. Because these children, they don't even go to sleep very early. They'll be up till 12 or 1, and they'll wake up also very early. So this is one thing that we can do. Also with ADHD, what we can do is, there is family therapy. So family therapy basically means how we can or what type of activities that we can do with the child, so that the child is, so that the family is better able to cope with the child. Because to understand, one thing we need to understand is that when one person is suffering in the family, then the whole family is suffering along with them, because they also have to adjust with the child. So family therapy will not only help the kid, but it's also going to help the family, uh, also going to help the kid's family. The other thing that we can do with ADHD is that, one thing is, it is very important in ADHD is that they're given very early interventions. Early interventions, basically, according to research, if early intervention is given, there is a high chance that these children will, as they grow up, as they turn into adults, they will not have the symptoms of ADHD. There might still be attention deficits in certain things, but they'll still have better control over their life. So it's not like ADHD cannot be cured. It's not like that. if there are certain therapies, certain activities that have been taught to them, once they grow up, they're more in control of them, and hence it is easier for them to live their life. Even though there might be certain instances, but it's still easier for them to live their lives. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for the insights. And OCD is also very prevalent in people. Now, how do people with OCD cope with it, and how is life different with OCD?
Okay, so OCD basically stands for obsessive compulsive disorder. And OCD we break into two parts. One is obsession, the other one is compulsions. So, what happens in obsessions is these are your constant recurrent thoughts. You're constantly thinking about it. And no matter how much I emphasize on the word constant, a person who does not have OCD cannot understand how recurrent those thoughts are. And these are not good thoughts. These are not thoughts that, oh, yes, I'm going to be a big psychologist or I'm going to have $1 million someday. But these are thoughts which are, I didn't lock my house. What will happen? Will someone enter? There must be there was a theft in my neighborhood. It will happen in my house only. I need to go and check. So these are your obsessive thoughts. You're constantly having these thoughts, and they're obvious, and they're constantly interfering with your social functioning. And then there are the compulsions. So what happens is when we are having these obsessions, we believe that if we do the activity or if we do a certain activity, we will be relieved from these obsessions. So in order to relieve ourselves from these obsessions, we will go and we'll check the door if the door is locked properly or not, and we will do this constantly a number of times. Even if I'm out for work, I'll call my someone, I'll call in my family and I'll say them, can you please check if the door is locked? So these are the compulsions. Compulsions are the actions that we do to relieve ourselves of the obsessive thoughts. This is the basic understanding of OCD. Now, uh, OCD is very difficult to live with, and no matter how easily we say, I'm sure you'll hear your friends also say that, I'm always cleaning my hands, dude, I have OCD. Or I'm always doing this, I have OCD. I'm constantly thinking about this, I have OCD. Now, a person who has OCD can never say this easily that, oh, yeah, I'm doing this, I have OCD. Because this person is suffering. It is not easy. They're suffering to a very great extent. And you whatever you do, no matter how much you try to distract yourself, your mind always goes to point blank of whether I did this or not. The thoughts are always interfering. There are also certain thoughts which makes you feel that if I don't do this behavior, something will happen to my loved ones. So these people are even more paranoid. They're always constantly checking on their loved ones. Are you fine? Are you fine? So OCD itself is difficult to live with. There are, of course, different options. There are a lot of different therapy options. There are medications don't cure your OCD, but they help you to have better control over those thoughts, those obsessive thoughts. And yes, a person with OCD can also have they can also have a good life. But there are certain activities, there are therapy that you will have to go through for yourself to feel better about it. Now, I'm sure you know of this actor Leonardo DiCaprio. He's a very famous actor. He's in news all the time. He is an actor who suffered from OCD, who was diagnosed with OCD, and he's one of the best actors that we have. So yes, it's not that a person with OCD cannot go day to day with their mundane lives, but yes, with the help of therapy, with the help of medications, even a person with OCD can flourish.
Okay. My next question would be: we talk about malnutrition and hunger a lot in India today. At least we are getting an awareness about it, but we don't talk about eating disorders that can be
Hmm.
acquired or inherent. Okay. So, can you throw a light on the eating disorders, how it works, or how what are the symptoms and all?
Okay. So for eating disorders, there are three very prevalent eating disorders that we usually hear of. One is anorexia, the other is bulimia, and the third is binging. To start with, binge eating basically means that you're binging, like we say binge watch TV. So that means what, you're watching a lot of TV. So in eating disorder, binge eating means you're having excessive food. It's out of control eating. That's binge eating, and I'm explaining in very layman, very simple terms. The other one is bulimia nervosa. So what happens in bulimia nervosa is that the individual will eat, and they will have excessive amount of food, and then they feel guilt or shame for having that much food. So what they'll do is they'll take laxatives, or they will vomit the food out, whatever they have had. So that is bulimia nervosa. And then the first type that we spoke about is anorexia nervosa. So anorexia nervosa is basically when the person has very distorted body image. They will look at them, they will look in the mirror, and they'll think that, oh, I'm very fat. So a lot of Victoria's Secret models, for that matter, suffered from anorexia. And you have seen Victoria's Secret models, the figure that they have, and they're so slender and thin, and they think that they are fat. So that's when they start dieting. They're not having any food, or they will eat very selective food. And people with anorexia can actually tell you that how much calories is in this food, how much is in that food. They're very well versed with these kind. And they also exercise extensively. So you're exercising to a very great extent, but you're not eating. So what happens is, a lot of times your body, uh, your ribs, your backbone, they start to show. So you can actually pinpoint a lot of times a person with anorexia, or any other eating disorder for that matter. So these are the very basic explanations of what eating disorders are. Now, eating disorders can also be treated. One of the first treatment is psychotherapy. In psychotherapy, they can be given cognitive behavioral therapy, which is also known as CBT. Now, CBT is taken from two different schools of thought. One is cognitive school, the other one is behavioral school. So what happens is, a lot of time, like I said, like for example, in anorexia, you have a distorted body image, right? You look at yourself and you think that, oh, I'm so fat. This is something that you think. So even though you might be what do we say that uh, figure zero, you might be that, but still you might think that you're very fat. So for such a person, CBT is very necessary, because what will happen in CBT is that the distorted thoughts that they have, the distorted cognitions, will be corrected, so that their behavior can also be adjusted accordingly. So that is CBT, which is given in with the help of psychotherapy. The second thing that can be given is Maudsley's approach. So Maudsley's approach is a type of a family therapy, which is usually given to teenagers. So if you're in a rehab for eating disorders, what will happen is your parents will also be called, and the teenagers along with their parents will work together and work on their dietary habits, and proper exercises and proper function. So this has been considered one of the most along with CBD, it has been considered very useful. And apart from CBD, there are medications. Now, again, medications cannot cure eating disorder as a whole, but it can help you control some of the symptoms, because along, if you have an eating disorder, there is a high chance you might also have anxiety or depression. You might be anxious, thinking that, oh, aaj maine bahut zyada kha liya. So these are some of the things that might come. Or depression, because you think that I'm not eating, only still I am not becoming thin. What is wrong with me? What do I do? So you can also have other disorders, which might be a result of eating disorders. So when you have these medications, they might help control the other symptoms. And then another counseling that is given is known as nutrition counseling. So what happens in nutrition counseling is, a proper dietitian, a licensed dietitian, will be assigned to the family, and the dietitian will give them that this much calorie food, or this much milligrams of this is required. So proper dietary balance chart will be given, so that even if they leave out on certain food, they're still healthy, at least to live. Because a lot of people with anorexia or any other eating disorders, they die because of not eating. They starve themselves to death. So yes, these are some of the ways to help with eating disorders.
Thank you so much for that. Now, reality as a concept can be tricky and subjective for a lot of people. Now, how do people perceive their own reality in their lives, and can one's reality be different from someone else's?
Yes, definitely. Now, uh, talk about, to speak in very technical terms, there are two types of, you can distinguish disorders into two types. One is neurosis, the other is psychosis. So what happens in neurosis is that you have mental illnesses like anxiety, depression, but you're still in touch with reality. But in touch with, by touch with reality, I mean, if I ask you what is this, so you'll tell this is a pen. So very simple things like that. You understand what is around you. I'm not looking at you, Abhilasha, and I'm not saying that, uh, there is someone, maybe there is someone, or things like that. So I'm in touch with the reality. I know what is going on around me. I am definitely suffering, no doubt. It's not that any of my illnesses is any less than anyone, but I'm aware of what's happening around me. I'm aware of the reality. When it comes to this is neurosis. When it comes to psychosis or any psychotic disorder, you must have heard of schizophrenia. So here you are at a loss of reality. You don't understand what reality is. So if I am delusional, if I believe that God has given me special powers, I am very stern believer of that. And when I believe that, it's real for me. And if you tell me, Alice, that no, God hasn't given you any real, superpowers, I will not believe you. I will think you are delusional, that you cannot accept that I have these powers. So for them, their reality is real. It's fact. It's true. For a person with psychosis, and hence their treatment is even more tricky, because you first have to break that wall of psychosis, of you have to try to bring them in touch with reality. So that itself makes the treatment a lot harder. So this is in terms of psychology. But yes, a person with neurosis is aware of their reality. It is very similar to fully functioning person, but a person with psychosis is at a loss of touch with reality. So, yeah.
Well, we talked about a lot mental health. I have just a simple question. We talk about stress a lot. So, as a someone from psychology subject, how would you define stress and how we can handle it?
Okay. So how I would define stress is when I'm unable to deal with a situation, or I'm facing very difficulty dealing with a situation, and it's causing me distress in that particular sector. Now, stress itself are of two types. One is eustress and one is distress. The eustress is the stress which is actually good for you. So if I tell you today that I'm going to conduct a test the day after, so the arousal that you'll feel, or the stress that you'll feel, that oh, I have to start studying, I have to do well in my exam, I need these grades. So this is a stress which is good for you. So you go home, you manage your time, you're eating, you're sleeping on time, you are doing your studies, and you come back to school, 2 days you study, third day you give your examinations and you score well. So that is eustress, it's good for you. Then there is distress. Distress is when in the same situation you think that I can't do it, it's just 2 days, what is my teacher expecting, I can't do it. So you go home, you have indigestion, you are unable to sleep because you're also thinking about what will happen, but you're not acting upon it. You're only thinking that you're very anxious, and you're like, oh god, what will happen, this one must have studied by now, she's saying she didn't study, but she pakka must have studied, she'll score well. What will happen to me, my parents will score me this and that. So you're thinking about a lot of things, and you're actually um, maximizing it for yourself, you're distorting it for yourself, the reality right now. So that becomes distress because it is interfering with your functioning. Now, so distress, like I said, is not good for you. And some of the ways by which you can manage stress is, number one, you can practice meditation. Now, one of the very common things that I've also heard in my internships is that everyone says that, what will meditation do, why is everyone so behind that, yoga karo, meditation karo, kya hoga usse? But these breathing exercises, they actually, when you are stressed, when you're anxious, your heart beats very fast, you're scared, your body is reacting to that. So when you practice this meditation or these breathing exercises, automatically your body slows down, it is getting acquainted and adjusted to the environment. And so it's actually good, because you are stressing out, it's a pressure on you, but when your body is also reacting, your body is slowing down. If your body is slowing down, how will you even sit down and study? Your mind will not sit, you will be constantly, you will be panicky. So yes, meditation is very necessary. You can do different exercises. A walk is good, you don't always have to go running and jogging, even a 30 minutes walk is good for you. Or very simple things like, just go sit with your loved ones, have a conversation, speak to them. speak to your friends without thinking that this is my friend or my mother, she will always say good things about me. But they're saying because you're good. Otherwise, they would have definitely criticized and say that you can do otherwise. Or you can just spend time with your animals. If you have dogs or cats, spend time with them. They're very loving. You automatically feel good. And as a person, everyone always knows what actually can make them feel better. Everyone knows that. So if you actually introspect and you think that, okay, if I watch this series of Friends or this series of Schitt's Creek, I'll definitely feel good. So even this little pressure, when it's taken off, it's a lot. So there are very small things you can do to get rid of stress, to feel good about yourself. And apart from that, you can practice different creative visualizations. You can maybe do some art, you can do some writing, journaling. This also helps you to cope with stress.
Even music helps me a lot. I mean, music is
Yeah,
very stress reliever, right? Okay.
true.
When we come here to the last part, well, you talked about a lot on how mental health is it, mental disorders are taboo today, and we need to work on it. From your side, how do you think it can be normalized by the people?
I think one of the best ways how we can normalize is uh, when we act very normal. Now, the very fact, if I sit in a classroom and I tell my friends that, oh, she's suffering from depression, and I say it in a very whispered tone, and I am all very icky about that. If I say my friend is having a viral fever, I'm saying it very normally. Why can't I say my friend is suffering from depression? And with all empathy for that person, not like that, how, with all empathy for that person. I don't think it's a very hush hush subject, the way it has been made. If someone is suffering, yes, they're suffering. So we need to be there to help them. So if you know your friend is suffering, give them social support, give them informational support if you have, give them tangible support if you can provide with it. But it should not be a hush hush topic about my friend is going from this or this is happening to that. And also it should not be gossip. Like I don't think people need to make groups and talk about that Taylor Swift also suffered from eating disorder. I don't think so it's necessary. Maybe what we can do is we can take motivation from the fact that such a wonderful singer like Taylor Swift suffered from anorexia, and still look at her. Look at her. I mean, she's number one. So maybe we can take motivation from that, because our disorders don't pull us back. They do make it difficult, no doubt, but they're not pulling us back. With given help, with the right amount of help, with the right medications, people are better. They can turn into fully functioning people. It is a possibility. So we need to work upon that. And at a very ground level, what we can do is, in our own families, when we see that or when we observe that maybe something is not right, we can always say that out loud, because our families are the places where we can actually raise or say our point of view at the first. We can speak in our schools, we can talk about it with our friends. And not like that, okay, let's have a mental health campaign and for 1 week we'll talk about mental health and then we forget about it. It's not like that. We actually genuinely talk and we genuinely act upon it and we genuinely care about it. So I think that's one way how these stereotypes, these stigmas, they'll be gone. Because when I started with psychology, there was a lot of talk even in my family that, if you want to be a therapist, you'll have to work with crazy people. I can't leave you alone with a crazy person. Don't do psychology, do something else that is a more secure job, like UPSC. Go for all of this. So but now at the position that I am in, uh, the same people, they're very happy and proud about it, and they talk about mental health, and they tell my other relatives that, that this is mental health and this should be the thing. This is how it is. Someone has to take the step, and once you take the step, it's like snowball. Everyone follows. And this belief that if the majority is right, everyone believes that. So I think if the majority of the people start talking about mental health and they start actually believing it and not just talk, a lot of changes can be made, a lot of difference can be made. And another thing is, it's a very basic thing, but when at your home, suppose you see uh, there is always rift between parents and children. It's very common. So if you see a rift between maybe your brother and your father, maybe what you can do is you can go and you can actually talk to them, instead of showing them a blind eye like they'll deal with it. Or I know you also at your own level might feel very emotionally vulnerable, that if I talk I don't know what I'll say, I don't want to be a part of this, sensitive. But you'll have to keep that aside, you'll have to go and you'll have to talk, because if someone brings them together, if someone starts the conversation, it's always more helpful, and communication is always helpful. There is nothing that communication cannot solve. When you keep your minds open, you sit together, you communicate, there's a lot of things that can be done at a very basic level. So yes, these are some things that we can do. And I think we need to be very open when something is wrong with us. And at our age, when we are more accepting of mental health, I think if we face any sort of difficulty, I think we need to start taking help, because not every therapy is expensive. There are a lot of therapists who are giving therapy for much cheaper rates, so we can always take help from those. There are different NGOs who are giving therapy for free. There are helpline numbers where you can call at crisis. So there's a lot, we if we want we can do. So yes, we first of all need to start taking help. And also another thing that I would like to say is, you don't have to take help only when it's at a very intense level, or when you have a disorder per se. But even if you're facing stress, you can always call a helpline number, you can always take therapy for that. If you think you have had a fight with your best friend, and your best friend who you value a lot, so very basic thing, and you're unable to communicate, you need some help in that sector, you can always take therapy. It does not have to be a disorder, full-fledged disorder, for you to take therapy. So yes, I think that. And also another thing, yes, so one of the other reasons why therapy is more accepting, maybe in foreign countries, is because every other person has a therapist like they have a lawyer, because they believe that therapy is necessary. There is and it's not dependency that I'm talking about, but when they believe that there is some situation which is getting out of control, they refer to their therapist, they go to their therapist, and it is acceptable. And then they tell their friends, yeah, sorry, I was in my therapy session, I'll come and meet you now. It's that common. They get leaves for therapy. There are companies which are providing leaves for therapy. There are certain insurance companies which are now starting with giving insurances for therapy. A lot of them still don't cover charges for therapy. So yes, these are some things that we can start at our level, maybe, to destigmatize psychology and its factors.
Yes, thank you so much for that, because I think like mental health, the concept of mental health has been stereotyped to such an extent that I think we all have internalized it to some point.
True.
And that's why people are not being able to acknowledge it now. Yeah. So but like we did talk about that like on a societal or collective level, but then I wanted to ask you, how can the government take initiatives to improve the conditions of mental disorders in children?
So I believe one thing that the government can do is the very basic, that is policy making. Now we do have a mental health act, but there is a lot that needs to be worked upon on the act. Now the act does not specify a lot of things for children, because you see, there are a range of disorders, and developmental disorders are specific to children. So these not developmental disorders. Because they're specific to children, they require specific policies as well. Now children will not only require a proper therapist, but for children, parent consent is also very important. If a child is not 18 plus, we cannot give them therapy without the consent of the parent. So these are certain things that maybe the government can look, maybe there can be different policies that can be made around them, because a lot of time teenagers do not want to go to their parents and ask them for help, or say that can you please sign my consent form, because they think that, or maybe parents do overreact at times, or they believe so. So that is one thing, that is policy making, of course. Second thing is that the government can start with more number of government NGOs, maybe, which is providing therapy specifically to children, which is free of cost, or at a very very minimal range. Because private companies, even if they say it's a minimal range, it always starts from what, 500 minimum. And for a teenager who is not earning with no pocket money, 500 is not possible to pay for every single session. So this is another thing that they can do. Third, government can team with these insurance companies for therapy, because in India a lot of maximum insurance companies don't cover the charges for therapy. So this is another thing that we can look into. And also we need more number of hospitals they're providing MPhil, because via MPhil you become a clinical psychologist. That is your licensing procedure. It's a IRCI license procedure. So and MPhil for clinical psychology and rehabilitation psychology is very much prevalent, even though the rest of the MPhil is not there, but it's prevalent for psychology, and it's a compulsion if you want to be a clinical psychologist. Now there are very handful of hospitals which are providing MPhil. So and each hospital is taking up to what, 10-15 students max. Usme bhi if you see there is reservation, so a lot of students are having to compete for a very less number of seats. So I think the government can look into this even more. More hospitals need to have more psychiatric wards, and not just a psychiatrist but also a counselor, a therapist, because the role of a psychiatrist and a therapist, though they work together, but there is also differences in that. So we need both of them. And yes, these are something that yes, the government can definitely focus on. And more advertisements maybe, because we don't have mental health advertisements on TV that is showcased. You might see on YouTube or other streaming channels, but you will not see much on a TV is more about commercial things. So maybe a short story, maybe a short advertisement on the TV for our parents generation to watch them and inculcate them as well. So yeah, these are some of the things.
Okay, we come to the end of the session. Thank you, Spreeha, for joining us today. It was a very insightful and informative session with you, and thank you for explaining us these terms in a layman language. And I hope you had a good time with us, and we would like to collaborate with you more in the future.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Abhilasha. Thank you
Yes,
for inviting
thank you
me.
so much. Yeah, and we really had a good time, and we did have access to so much of insights. I really did not know a lot of things that I learned today. And also, lastly, we would like to ask you, what is your take on our organization and our project?
So I read up about your organization, and I'm very happy to see that your organization is working a lot on hygiene, on education, on topics such as mental health, and to start a whole episode which says who can I talk to, and have number of episodes on that. I think it's pretty good, because then you're covering a lot of issues, and your talk. And also I see so far it's, I think, the second episode, but both times you have taken people of similar ages. So even to have a young perspective on a lot of topics is very essential. So I'm very happy to see this initiative, and I wish you and your organization a very best for your future.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank
And we are
you
like,
so
really
much.
grateful that you did the second episode. And hope we get to meet again someday, and like hope that
Sure,
we get to collaborate more. So thank you
definitely.
so much.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank
All the
you.
best to you. Yeah.
Thank you.